Just a clarification. Well, first, it is great to be here, and it is definitely an honor to be here. You know, Tim and team, what a great event. So I'm definitely humbled to be here. Quick clarification on what Charlie was saying. When I first started Clarivoy in 2009, I started it as a performance-based marketing agency so that I would only get paid based upon the performance that I was generating for my clients. We've since evolved our offering to become, you know, almost strictly focused on attribution. So that's kind of the explanation there. So I was, you know, talking to my wife a couple nights ago, and I was telling her about this event and that, you know, I would be following Alex Vedder you know, on the main stage. And I said to her, I said, could you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that I would be on the main stage following someone like Alex Vedder? And she looked at me and said, honey, you're not in my wildest dreams. So welcome to my life. All right. There, okay. Okay. Reduce the confusion there. All right. So yeah, so Steve White, CEO and founder of Clarivoy. The topic of my talk today is I know more about your customers than your CRM. And the reason that I know more about your customers is because of a concept called multi-touch attribution. So let's unpack this $64 marketing term. So multi, more than one, many, touch, contact or connect with, attribution, basically a fancy word for giving credit. And so the way you can think about multi-touch attribution is it takes into account the entire purchase journey of someone when they buy a vehicle and then shares that credit across all of those different touch points. So it is connecting the dots between all of your different marketing channels along the way and sharing the credit. Another way to think about multi-touch attribution is with an automotive analogy with split deal. So let's say that 5 people are involved in a sale. So typically in a split deal, you're going to give credit to the first salesperson and to the 5th salesperson. Multi-touch attribution is actually going to share credit across all 5 of those different salespeople. So to better explain multi-touch attribution, I thought I would walk you through this formula. Oh, come on. I usually get a good laugh out of this one. Just kidding. What I am going to do is I'm going to use a drinking analogy to kind of drive home the point of multi-touch attribution. And so if any of you, you know, have been drunk and had a hangover, you can definitely relate with this story. And heck, some of you might even still have a hangover this morning, so be very top of mind. So when you think about when you've woke up the next morning and you've had a hangover, you know, and you think back about the 10 drinks that you had, it wasn't that first beer or that last tequila shot. It was that cumulative effect of all of those different drinks that got you drunk and led to the hangover. And so that's just another way that you can kind of think about multi-touch attribution. So a little bit more about me, and fittingly I'll do it with numbers. So 3 kids, 2 cats, 1 dog, 1 wife. 1999 is when I launched my first internet startup. In 2004, that's when I started my automotive marketing career. In 2012, that's when we actually released our first attribution product into the marketplace. And then 10/25/2016. This was, you know, a very, very good day for Clarivoy. This was the day that we were honored to win the Driving Sales Innovation Cup for the most innovative solution. And the solution was multi-touch attribution. And I think, when I think back on that time, I think what it really communicated to us is that dealers really raised their hand and said, yes, we are ready for a more sophisticated way to analyze our marketing and return on investment. So I'd like to think that we kind of help kind of usher in the multi-touch attribution movement. And you know, since then, attribution has just been all over the news, and you know, people talk about attribution on a regular basis, and so we've been, you know, very fortunate to be part of that conversation along the way. So what I'm going to talk about today is Attribution 101. I'm going to kind of do a quick little crash course. to get anyone who's not familiar with multi-touch attribution up to speed. I'm going to talk about kind of the current state of automotive attribution, how dealers are thinking about multi-touch attribution. I'm also going to talk about the difference between attribution and multi-touch attribution. I'm going to point out the fact that CRM is definitely not multi-touch attribution, and I'll explain the reasons why. I'll talk about Google Analytics and kind of where does Google Analytics kind of fit into the whole mix of multi-touch attribution. Then I'm going to give a test towards the end of the presentation, and then kind of go over a little bit of a case study of sorts to show the impact of what multi-touch attribution can do for your dealership and the insights that it will deliver. All right, Attribution 101. So there are a variety of different ways or different attribution models in which you can assign credit to a particular marketing source. And so with First Touch, what that does is it says, I'm going to give 100% credit to that first touch, and I'm going to ignore all of the other interactions that happen after that. And typically, this is where kind of CRM falls. And I'll explain a little bit more later on that. Last Touch, conversely, says, you know what, I'm going to ignore every single thing that led up to the sale except for that last touch, and I'm going to give 100% credit to that sale, to that last interaction or the last click. Time decay, from a multi-touch attribution perspective, is going to give increasingly more credit the closer to the sale, to each of those different touch points. Even linear says, we're just going to share the credit evenly across the board, across all of those different touch points. Parabolic is a little more sophisticated than even or linear, and it's going to give more credit to that first interaction, kind of the opener, and to the closer, that last interaction, and then it's going to split credit in between the other things that influence the sale. And then data-driven. Data-driven is going to use machine learning to assign credit, as opposed to arbitrarily saying, I want to give this much credit to the first click and last click. We're going to allow the machines to actually assign how much credit we should give to each of those different touch points. And so these are some of the common attribution metrics. So some people will report on website traffic. Others will report on VDPs. Then you also have leads, and then ultimately sales. To kind of get a better understanding of how auto dealers think about multi-touch attribution, we did a survey last year. And so we asked a number of different questions. And so one of the questions we asked was, what are your biggest marketing challenges that you're facing today? And I think, not surprisingly, I think proving ROI was at the top of the list. Number 2, better targeting. And then kind of in the same vein of proving ROI was vendor performance, trying to evaluate the performance of our vendors. The next question we asked was, how do you measure your marketing performance? And this was kind of enlightening for us in that dealers still continually rely upon their CRM to make marketing decisions, as well as using marketing analytics tools like Google Analytics. So they both came in at a tie. And then as number 3, dealers are using the vendor's marketing reports to evaluate their performance. And then we also ask, what type of attribution model do you use when evaluating the performance of your marketing? And so between first and last click, 77% of dealers said this is how we evaluate the performance. We either give 100% credit to that first interaction, or we either give 100% credit to that last interaction. Another question we ask is, what would your ideal measurement solution include? Again, ROI contribution of each marketing channel, analytics that deliver actionable insights, and then a transparent view of the consumer purchase journey to better understand how consumers are buying cars. And then lastly, which metrics do you use to evaluate your marketing? Again, not surprising, sold vehicles, number of leads, phone calls, and then kind of in that same group, just some more broader ROI calculation of how they're evaluating their marketing. Now I want to kind of transition and talk about attribution versus multi-touch attribution. So the thing about attribution is actually everybody does attribution. All of your vendors do attribution. The problem is not very many people do multi-touch attribution. And so what that means is, when you have a vendor that is sending an email campaign for you, and that person clicked through from that email campaign and ultimately bought a vehicle, that is attribution, right? Same thing is if you've had a display company that is running a display campaign for you, they click through on the banner ad, the person fills out a form, and then shows up at your dealership and buys the vehicle. Again, that's attribution. But what the industry is forgetting is you need to do multi-touch attribution. You need to factor in all of the different touch points that actually led to the purchase of the vehicle. CRM is definitely not multi-touch attribution, and here are a few reasons why. So when you think about a CRM, what does it stand for? Customer Relationship Management. It was not built or designed to handle a multi-channel world. It was designed to stay in contact with your customers and keep their contact information and deliver various types of communications to them. But it is definitely not a reporting tool, but it has evolved to a reporting tool, unfortunately. One of the things that we do with our clients is we will kind of do an audit of their CRM to get a sense of how are they tracking currently within their CRM. And so these are some buckets in which we were able to, with one store, in which we were able to classify how vehicles were being sold. And so, not surprisingly, repeat or referral, a high number, a fairly high number, and that's to a certain extent, that's pretty straightforward to track. In the source not helpful and internet, this comprised, in this particular dealer situation, 53% in their CRM. And this included things like people will type in walk-in, or they'll select drive-by or location, or a more comical one is, and I've seen this in CRMs, I was too weak to ask. So the troubling thing is that dealers are making decisions based upon this data. How on earth are you able to make a data-driven decision to figure out what is helping you sell cars when you have internet, a vague notion of internet, as the lead source? The other reason why CRMs are not equipped to handle multi-touch attribution is the fact that, and Alex talked about this, is that less and less people are actually filling out lead forms. They prefer to shop anonymously online. Our numbers say it's 90% and up of people that want to shop your website and remain anonymous. CRMs are not equipped to handle this type of tracking. And so what I mean by this is, and this, I'll give you the example of Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous. How am I doing on time? Because it just went 0. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Anonymous. And so in this particular case, this person, as you can see, shopped across 4 different IP addresses, had 5 total sessions, 94 page views, visited his first touch, was on a third-party auto website on March 19th. The other touches included organic, paid search, retargeting, and the last touch was direct. When that person showed up at the dealership, he was marked as walk-in. And so this is why CRMs are not equipped to handle a multi-touch attribution world. And so the way that it's done is, Clarivoy has solutions, other people have solutions in order to basically de-anonymize your website visitors. And so by this I mean we're able to convert people that never self-identify, and we're able to link them to an online identity. Take that offline identity and link it to an online identity. And so what happens is that someone will go on Google, they'll search for a vehicle, they'll go to your website, and they'll purchase a new car. And so with this technology, what it does is it de-anonymizes that particular person and then reconnects that click trail back. Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a great tool, but it also has its limitations. One, it is not the easiest tool to operate. And if you don't set it up right, it will turn into analytics for Google. Google Analytics, the default attribution model is last click in Google Analytics. And typically the last click is a consumer going to Google and entering in your dealer's name. And so I want you to be cautious of when you're looking at Google Analytics, make sure that it is properly configured for multi-touch attribution. One of the things about Google Analytics that Google Analytics can't handle, and is kind of their Achilles heel, is they can't handle offline sales data. Yes, they are a great tool for evaluating e-commerce transactions for e-commerce companies, but it is not equipped or able to take offline sales and connect the dots to the purchase journey. All right, so let's talk about the little quiz or the test that I'm going to give you. So if a consumer shops on a third-party auto website, goes to Google and searches your dealer name, and then visits your dealer website. So in a first-click environment, so first-click attribution, in this particular example, who's going to get credit? No. Google is actually going to get credit, because if that person went to the third-party website, didn't click through, but then later went to Google and searched, Google is going to get the credit in that particular scenario. The same thing is actually going to happen with last click. Google is going to get that same credit in that particular scenario. Let's look at it from the perspective of Facebook. Let's say that a person is on Facebook, they see your ad on Facebook, they don't click through, they then go to Google, type in your dealer name, then go to your website and fill out a lead form. In this particular case, the first click, again, Google is going to get credit. The last click, in this particular scenario, direct, or AKA website, is going to get credit in Google Analytics. It's going to ignore your social campaign because it doesn't even realize that that existed in Google Analytics. Then let's look at Google Analytics from a sales perspective. As I mentioned, Google Analytics can't track sales. And so that's where, as I said before, Google Analytics really falls down, and it's a total disconnect in being able to connect the offline to the online purchase journey. Next up, website traffic and VDP. Let's look at it from the CRM perspective. So in the CRM, not available. The vast majority of CRMs are not going to be able to see if someone was on a third-party website, goes to Google later and searches and visits your dealer website. It's going to show up, it's not going to show up in CRM. Let's look at leads. So from a lead perspective, if I'm on a third-party website, I go to Google, search the dealer name, then I go to your website, fill out a lead form. In your CRM, it's going to be website or internet. So Google this time is actually not going to get credit. Same thing with last click, the website or internet is going to get the credit in this particular case. Think about it from this scenario. Let's add the fact that someone goes through the same purchase process and then ends up purchasing a vehicle. The sale is actually going to get credited again back to the website, and it's going to ignore Google and Facebook in that purchase journey. And then lastly, if the person goes through that same click path but doesn't self-identify when they are on your website or fill out a lead form or call you, and then they just show up at your dealership and purchase the vehicle, that's going to be labeled as walk-in in your CRM. So what multi-touch attribution does is it provides a single, complete view of the entire purchase journey so that you can make solid marketing decisions from that. It connects all of the different touch points that impacted the sale. So this is an example of where we took our software and we basically extracted 100 sales from our multi-touch attribution software. And so each one of these rows represent an actual sale. The yellow actually represents what your CRM would have told you about those sales. Pretty sparse, right? When you overlay multi-touch attribution and integrate that in, it lights up like a Christmas tree, and you can see how multi-touch attribution is connecting all of those different touch points before and after, and sometimes that they never were even seen in the CRM. This is kind of the money slide, I think, for a lot of our clients. It's kind of the wow moment, like, wow, I had no idea the extent to which people are touching so many different marketing channels before they're actually purchasing a vehicle. And so my case to you today is multi-touch attribution really needs to become a replacement for your CRM reporting because of the inherent flaws that exist in your CRM. Stop making marketing decisions with your CRM data. So to drive this point home a little bit more, this is a comparison of one of our clients. Kind of scramble the numbers a little bit, but you'll get the general gist. So in CRM, the first source showed, this is over a year period, over a group of sites. And so the source number one, as you can see, 18 sales were actually attributed in CRM. With Clarivoy multi-touch, or any, or other multi-touch attribution software, you would be able to see over 2,264 sales in addition to that first source that actually led to the purchase of a vehicle. So imagine making decisions without this data. It seems kind of scary when you think about the differential between what your CRM is telling you and what multi-touch attribution can tell you. And that's it for today.
Just a couple moments left, so I just want to ask, on that last slide, obviously I was looking for totals. I mean, wouldn't it seem obvious to you if the attribution numbers were so much lower through your CRM versus the total cars sold? And obviously we didn't go all the way down the column there. Mm-hmm. So if you're reviewing that, source one and source two were your primary, where again, source two seemed much more important than one, but walk me through that.
Yeah, so, I mean, in our dashboard, you would see, cost per sale so that you could begin to understand the efficiency of each of those different sources so that you could then evaluate which one was the better performing source.
Yeah, but I mean, that's an incredible difference. I mean, thousands different.
Thousands,
I get that it wasn't just out of order, but significantly out of order. So, and I do remember being there when you won the award. Yeah. So I appreciate that. And again, accepted data. I love the drinking analogy because, I mean, of course, when we first heard that, we were in Vegas, and it made plenty of sense. But all these years, as we all know, that it goes back to even the dealers that still have a separate walk-in versus internet department. I mean, these people that are walking in have been all over the place, and so it's so hard to quantify that, and I know you guys are doing a good job. Yeah. I was very disappointed to learn that you're charging for that now, but I guess, hey, you show the wife and kids, and all of a sudden it makes sense, But to make things easier, again, you're still wearing the same clothes that were in your picture, so
that's right.
We all thank you for that.
It's my uniform.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Thanks for sharing that information. Good to see you again.